My name is Emily, and this is the story of how my life was torn apart and how I found the strength to rebuild it. It all started with what seemed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding to Jake. We had met 3 years earlier at a company retreat. He was charming, ambitious, and incredibly attentive, and I fell for him quickly. It wasn't long before he asked me out, and from our very first date, I was convinced I had found my soulmate. But appearances can be deceiving. The first year of our marriage was everything I had dreamed of. Jake's career was thriving, and he always made time for me despite his busy schedule. We traveled together, laughed endlessly, and shared dreams for the future. But as time went on, cracks began to appear. At first, they were small: missed dinners, canceled plans, and the occasional coldness in his tone. I brushed them off, telling myself that work stress was the culprit. After all, Jake had always been so considerate and loving. One evening, I suggested we spend the weekend at a secluded cabin to reconnect. He hesitated but eventually agreed. I was thrilled, thinking it would be a chance to reignite the spark in our relationship. As we packed for the trip, Jake's phone buzzed incessantly with messages. He dismissed my questions, saying they were work-related. I wanted to believe him, but something about his tone felt off. When we arrived at the cabin, I was determined to make it a memorable weekend. We cooked together, went hiking, and even danced under the stars. For a moment, it felt like old times. But late that night, while Jake was in the shower, his phone lit up with a message. Curiosity got the better of me. The message read, "Can't wait to see you again." My heart sank. The sender's name was listed as Alex, but I knew something wasn't right. My mind raced as I considered confronting him, but I decided to wait. I needed proof. Over the next few weeks, I began piecing together clues. Jake's late nights, vague excuses, and guarded phone behavior pointed to one conclusion. My worst fears were confirmed when I followed him one evening and saw him meeting a woman at a cafe. They laughed and held hands, completely unaware of my presence. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. The woman, as I later discovered, was none other than my closest friend, Rachel. Rachel and I had been inseparable for years. She was the one person I confided in about everything, including my doubts about Jake. To see her with him felt like a double betrayal. I confronted Jake that night, unable to hold back my anger. At first he denied everything, but when I mentioned Rachel's name, his face went pale. He admitted to the affair but tried to justify it, blaming our strained relationship. His words cut deeper than any knife. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved out of our apartment and filed for divorce. My family and remaining friends rallied around me, offering support, but the pain was unbearable. I avoided Rachel, unable to face her deceit. Jake's attempts to reconcile were met with silence. I had no interest in hearing his excuses or false promises. I was done with both of them. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I struggled to find my footing. Nights were the hardest, with memories of happier times haunting me. But amidst the darkness, a plan began to form. I realized I didn't want to let their betrayal define me. If they thought they could move on without facing the consequences of their actions, they were sorely mistaken. Rachel worked at the same company as Jake. She had recently been promoted to a senior position, a role she had always coveted. Knowing this, I decided to bide my time and gather evidence of their affair. My opportunity came during a company-wide event. I managed to gain access to Rachel's office and found emails and messages that left no doubt about their relationship. Armed with this proof, I anonymously leaked the information to their HR department. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Rachel's reputation took a massive hit. Accusations of favoritism and unprofessional behavior swirled, and she was eventually demoted. Jake, too, faced scrutiny. His coworkers distanced themselves, and his once promising career began to falter. Watching them face the consequences of their actions brought me a sense of vindication, but it wasn't enough. I still felt the weight of their betrayal, and I knew I needed to take one final step to reclaim my life. Months later, Rachel and Jake announced their engagement. The news spread quickly among our mutual friends, many of whom expressed disbelief and disgust. I was invited to the wedding, likely as an attempt to mend fences, but I had no intention of attending. Instead, I planned something far more impactful. On the day of the wedding, I sent a package addressed to the officiant. Inside was a USB drive containing a video montage. The video started with pictures of Jake and me during happier times, accompanied by heartfelt captions about love and trust. As the montage progressed, it transitioned to the evidence of his affair with Rachel. Photos, emails, and messages that painted a clear picture of their betrayal. The final slide read, "True love is built on honesty." Can Jake and Rachel say the same? I imagined the chaos as the video played during the ceremony. Though I wasn't there to witness it, I received updates from mutual friends. The wedding was abruptly halted, and guests left in shock and discomfort. Jake and Rachel's relationship, already strained by the fallout from their affair, crumbled under the pressure. With that chapter finally closed, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't about revenge, but about justice and holding them accountable. I poured my energy into rebuilding my life. I started a new job, moved to a different city, and focused on self-care. I took up painting, a hobby I had abandoned years ago, and found solace in creating art. Over time, I began to heal. Eventually, I met someone new. His name was Daniel, and he was kind, patient, and understanding. He knew about my past, but never judged me for it. With him, I learned to trust again and rediscovered what it meant to feel truly valued. Our relationship was built on mutual respect and honesty, a stark contrast to what I had endured with Jake. Looking back, I realized that the betrayal, as painful as it was, had taught me invaluable lessons. It forced me to confront my fears, stand up for myself, and prioritize my well-being. Jake and Rachel's actions had initially shattered me, but in the end, they only made me stronger. Their choices led to their downfall, while I emerged from the wreckage with a renewed sense of purpose and resilience. Months after rebuilding my life, an unexpected letter arrived in the mail. It was from Rachel. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Her words were a mix of apology and regret. She claimed she had been manipulated by Jake, who had promised her a future filled with love and stability. But now, she was left to pick up the pieces of her own broken life. I didn't respond. Her letter didn't deserve my energy. I had moved on, and revisiting the past wasn't an option. Later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Rachel's life had spiraled further. She struggled to hold down a job and was living paycheck to paycheck. Jake, on the other hand, had taken a job in a far-off city, far from the ambitious career he had once envisioned. It seemed their betrayal had come full circle, bringing them nothing but despair. Meanwhile, I continued to grow. Daniel and I moved in together, and our life was filled with laughter, adventure, and mutual respect. I focused on new hobbies, and even started teaching art classes in the evenings. Helping others find joy and creativity gave me a sense of fulfillment I hadn't known before. One evening, while reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized how much I had changed. The betrayal that once consumed me had become a distant memory, a lesson in resilience. Jake and Rachel were no longer the villains of my story. They were simply characters in a chapter I had closed. In time, I decided to write my story, hoping it would inspire others who had faced similar betrayals. Sharing my journey was therapeutic, and the feedback I received from readers was overwhelming. People thanked me for my honesty and courage, saying it gave them hope to rebuild their own lives. Life is unpredictable, and pain is inevitable, but I've learned that how we respond defines us. I chose to rise above the darkness, to find light in the simplest of joys, and to rebuild my life with integrity and love. And for that, I will always be proud.